Hello, my dear ones. I am Grandma Evelyn, and I am 75 years old now. I have lived through so many things in my life, some happy, some heartbreaking, and well, I never thought I would survive. Before I tell you today's story, I want to ask, where are you watching from? Are you in your cozy living room, curled up on the sofa with a blanket, or are you on a quiet train, listening to my voice as it carries you away? Wherever you are, I hope you can feel the warmth of my words and the heart of my story. You see, I have always been a woman who tried to see the good in people. Life has taught me, sometimes painfully, that kindness is a gift you give without expecting anything back. My family knows this about me. My daughter, Claire, is a bright and thoughtful woman, always quick to help a neighbor. My son, Michael, though stubborn and independent, has a heart of gold. And my husband, James. Oh, James, the love of my life for 55 years. He was always the one to make everyone laugh, even in the darkest times. But let me tell you, my story today is not about laughter at first. It begins with a pain so sharp that it knocked the breath out of me. It was a Tuesday morning early when I felt it, a stabbing pain in my lower right side. At first, I thought I had eaten something bad, or maybe I had pulled a muscle bending over the laundry. But as the morning wore on, the pain grew worse, twisting around my belly like a snake. I tried to stay calm, telling myself, "Grandma Evelyn, you've handled worse than this." But deep down I knew this was different. Something was very wrong. Called Claire first. "Mom, you don't sound well," she said immediately, worry in her voice. "You need to go to the hospital. Now." I hesitated. Hospitals had always made me nervous. The smell of antiseptic, the constant beeping of machines, the whispers of nurses, all of it reminded me of my younger days when I had to visit James after his surgeries. But I knew she was right. I got dressed slowly, wincing with every step, and tried to get myself into the car. Michael was already on his way too, texting that he would meet us at the hospital. By the time we arrived at St. Mary's Hospital, the pain had grown unbearable. The nurse guided me to a wheelchair, and I felt a cold wave of fear wash over me. I had never had surgery before, not like this. James held my hand tightly, whispering, "I'll be right here, Evelyn. Don't you worry." I could see the worry etched on his face, lines deeper than I had ever noticed before. After some tests, the doctor, Dr. Lawson, came into the room with a serious expression. "Grandma Evelyn, we believe you have appendicitis," he said. My mind froze. Appendicitis. I had heard of it before, of course, but never thought it would happen to me, not at my age. "We need to operate immediately," he continued. My heart raced. I had never had surgery in my life. My family was right there with me, but I still felt that cold, invisible grip of fear. And that was when the most shocking part happened. Suddenly the pain doubled and I felt faint. The nurse had to hold me steady while the doctor called for the oar. I remember clutching James's hand, whispering, "I'm scared, James. What if something goes wrong?" He kissed my forehead and said, "You are stronger than you know, Evelyn. You've faced storms before. You'll get through this." And just like that, I was wheeled into the operating room, the bright lights above making everything surreal. I can still remember the last things I saw before the anesthesia took me away. Claire's worried eyes, Michael holding back tears, and James whispering promises I clung to like a lifeline. And then, darkness. When I woke up, I was in a different room. Machines were beeping softly around me. Pain still lingered, but it was different now. Less sharp, more like a dull reminder that something serious had just happened. I was in the hospital, and I would be here for 4 long days recovering from the operation. I looked around the room, seeing strangers who would become my unexpected friends, nurses who treated me like family, and doctors who explained every little thing patiently, showing me that even in scary moments, kindness and empathy could make a world of difference. But here's the cliffhanger, my dear listeners. On the second night of my stay, something happened in that hospital room that made me question everything. Something that would change the way I saw my own strength and the true meaning of family and care. And that, my dear ones, is where our journey begins. Before I tell you what happened that night, let me go back to the beginning of this story so you can understand everything that led me to that operating room, the pain, the fear, and the incredible lessons I learned along the way. It all started a few weeks before the pain hit. I had been living a quiet life, enjoying my garden, baking cookies for my grandchildren, and spending afternoons on the porch with James, watching the sunset. The days were slow but beautiful. I never expected that the quiet life I loved so much would be interrupted by a sudden, sharp twist of fate. Every morning I would wake up early to tend to my roses. I always believed that taking care of something fragile and watching it grow taught patience and hope. On one of those mornings, as I bent to water my lilies, I felt a small twinge in my side. I thought nothing of it at first. But over the next few days, the twinge became a dull ache. And soon, it became a constant companion that I could not ignore. I tried to push through it, keeping up with my usual routines. I baked pies for the church fundraiser, helped Claire pick out new books for her library, and even played board games with my grandchildren. But every evening when I sat down in my favorite armchair, the pain would creep back, stronger than before, like a shadow that would not leave. One afternoon, James suggested I see a doctor. I hesitated, old habits die hard, but finally I agreed. That is when Dr. Lawson first mentioned the possibility of appendicitis. I had never imagined it would happen to someone my age. "Grandma Evelyn," he said gently, "sometimes appendicitis doesn't announce itself clearly. But your symptoms match, and we need to act fast." I remember walking out of that clinic with James supporting me, feeling a mix of fear and relief. Fear because surgery at my age was risky. Relief because at least we knew what we were facing. But nothing could prepare me for the storm that would hit the very next morning, when the pain became so unbearable that I knew I could not wait any longer. That morning when I called Claire and Michael, I had no idea that those calls would start a chain of events leading me straight to the operating room. I could never have imagined the kindness of the nurses who stayed with me through long, restless hours, the way strangers smiled at me in the corridors, or how love and empathy could make a hospital room feel like a safe haven. And yet, even as I lay in that hospital bed, recovering from my operation, I could not shake the feeling that something was coming. Something that would test me further, something that would push me to my limits. And that, my dear ones, is where I must leave you for now. The night that changed everything, the event that would test my courage and my faith in the goodness of people, is coming next. But you will have to wait. Because the story is just beginning, and the most incredible lessons are yet to unfold. That night in the hospital, the room was quiet, but my mind was racing. The soft hum of the machines and the occasional shuffle of nurses in the corridor made me feel both safe and restless. James had gone home to get some rest, promising to return first thing in the morning, and Claire and Michael were asleep at their homes, but I felt an odd sense of anticipation, as if the night itself was holding its breath. I lay in bed, feeling the dull ache of my abdomen and the stiffness in my joints from lying so long. I closed my eyes and tried to remember all the stories of courage I had told my grandchildren, about climbing trees, winning races in school and facing fears. But somehow those memories felt distant. The fear of something unknown creeping into my night was stronger. Then it happened. A sudden knock on my hospital door startled me. "Grandma Evelyn," whispered a young voice. I opened my eyes to see Nurse Jessica, a kind woman in her late 20s, holding a clipboard, her expression serious but gentle. "Are you okay? I just wanted to check on you before my shift ends." I nodded, trying to smile. I'm fine, dear. Just a bit restless, I guess." My voice sounded smaller than I expected, weaker somehow. She came closer and gently held my hand. "You're recovering very well, Grandma. I know surgery is scary, but you're strong. And sometimes these quiet nights, they test us in ways we don't expect." Her words, soft as they were, made my heart feel lighter. Here was someone who didn't just care about my body, but about me as a person. We talked quietly for a while about small things. My garden, my grandchildren, and the pies I had baked before the operation. Somehow, her presence eased the tension in the room. But then, as I was about to drift back into sleep, I felt it. A sharp, sudden twinge, unlike the dull pain I had been feeling before. My heart skipped a beat, and I gasped, clutching the side of my bed. Jessica noticed immediately. "Grandma, are you all right?" she exclaimed. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. The pain was sharp, twisting through my abdomen like a vine. I felt dizzy, my vision blurred, and I thought, "Oh, this can't be happening now." Within moments, another nurse appeared. Tom, a calm man who had been on night duty for years. "We're going to take care of you, Mrs. Evelyn," he said. They helped me adjust in the bed, and Jessica held my hand firmly. "You're not alone," she whispered. And in that moment I realized something important. No matter how old you are, no matter how strong or brave, sometimes you need the kindness and empathy of others to carry you through. After a few tense minutes, the pain eased slightly, though a dull ache remained. Jessica stayed with me, adjusting pillows, bringing warm water, and talking softly. She reminded me to breathe slowly and assured me that the medications were working. The presence of someone so attentive and caring turned a frightening night into a lesson in the power of human compassion. By the early morning, James returned, carrying a small thermos of tea and a bag with breakfast for me. His eyes were filled with relief when he saw me awake and smiling. "You scared me," he said, hugging my shoulders gently. I laughed softly, despite the lingering pain. "I scared myself too," I admitted. As the sun began to rise, painting the hospital walls with pale gold, I felt an unexpected surge of gratitude. Here I was, recovering from surgery, surrounded by people who genuinely cared. I realized that strength isn't just about enduring pain. It's also about allowing others to help, letting kindness in when life becomes unbearable. Over the next few hours, the day unfolded slowly. Claire arrived with flowers she had picked from her garden, and Michael came with a stack of my favorite magazines and a new puzzle. The room, once quiet and tense, was filled with laughter, chatter, and stories. We shared memories, jokes, and even a few tears. And through it all, I learned that empathy isn't just about helping in emergencies. It's about the small moments, the gestures that make life lighter. But just when I thought the day would pass quietly, an extreme event occurred that made my heart stop. Around midday, a sudden commotion broke out in the hospital corridor. I saw people running, doors opening and closing, and then a loud crash followed by hurried voices. One of the patients in the next room had fallen and hit their head badly. The staff rushed to attend to them, and the urgency of the situation reminded me of how fragile life could be. James held my hand tightly. "Evelyn, everything will be okay," he said, but I could feel the tension in his fingers. The incident shook me, reminding me that life can be unpredictable, and even in moments of healing, we are surrounded by unexpected trials. That was the extreme event that marked the day. A sudden reminder that life doesn't pause, even when you are recovering, even when you are trying to heal. And it left me with a question that would echo in my mind for days. How do we stay strong and kind when the world around us is unpredictable and sometimes frightening? As the day wore on, the hospital settled again. Nurses moved quietly, patients rested, and the room became calm. But deep down, I knew that my journey of recovery and learning was far from over. There were lessons to be learned, fears to be faced, and unexpected challenges yet to come. And that, my dear listeners, is where we leave Chapter 2. I will tell you next how the days following that extreme event unfolded, how my spirit was tested, and how the little acts of kindness from strangers and family alike helped me find courage I didn't know I had. The days after that terrifying incident in the hospital corridor were a mixture of quiet moments and small challenges. I was learning to walk again slowly, leaning on James and occasionally on a sturdy walker, feeling my muscles protest after lying in bed for so long. Each step was a victory, each moment of independence a tiny celebration. But even in these quieter moments, my mind kept returning to that extreme event. The patient who had fallen, the rush of the staff, the sudden fear that life could change in a heartbeat. Claire visited every morning, bringing her usual energy and warmth. She would sit by my bedside and read stories, sometimes from her favorite novels, sometimes from our family history. Michael, too, was there nearly every day, often sitting quietly, doing crossword puzzles or helping me with small exercises the nurses recommended. Their presence reminded me how essential family support is during hard times, not just in emergencies, but in all the small, ordinary moments that make life rich. One afternoon, as I rested in my bed, I watched Nurse Jessica carefully tend to a young boy in the next room. He had a broken arm and tears streaked his cheeks. I felt a pang of empathy for him. It reminded me that everyone has their struggles, even in places that seem safe. I called Jessica over and whispered, "You have a gift, dear. Not just caring for the sick, but comforting them too." She smiled, a warm, gentle smile that lit up her tired face. "Thank you, Grandma Evelyn. I learned from people like you, who show patience and understanding." It was in these quieter moments that I began to reflect on what I had learned in my 75 years. Life is unpredictable, yes, but kindness, real, thoughtful, patient kindness, can make unbearable things bearable. Every nurse who stayed late to adjust my pillows, every doctor who explained patiently, every family member who held my hand through tears, they all demonstrated the quiet power of empathy. And I realized that even when we face pain or uncertainty, we have the ability to give and receive care, to make a difference in someone else's life, even in tiny ways. But just when I felt that things might settle into a peaceful routine, something happened that startled me all over again. One evening, just as the sun was dipping behind the hospital buildings, casting a golden glow through my window, I heard a loud alarm from the floor below. Lights flashed red briefly, and I could hear hurried footsteps echoing through the hallways. My heart raced. "What now?" I whispered to James, who was sitting by my bed. A nurse appeared at my door, her face pale but determined. "There's been a fire drill, or maybe a small electrical problem," she explained quickly. "We're making sure everyone is safe." The alarms blared again, a deafening sound that made me clutch my blanket tightly. Even though no one was hurt, the sudden chaos reminded me that life rarely allows us to stay calm for long. One moment you feel safe and cared for. The next, the world reminds you how fragile everything is. In that moment, I remembered the lesson from the previous extreme event. Fear and uncertainty are part of life, but courage, patience, and kindness give us strength. I held James's hand and breathed slowly, trying to calm my own racing heart. The nurses guided everyone to safety, and before long, the alarms stopped. I could hear laughter and relief as other patients returned to their rooms. And while the event itself was minor, it was a stark reminder that even ordinary days can be interrupted by sudden challenges. The next day, I felt a sense of calm returning. My pain was manageable, and the exercises I did with Michael helped me regain a little more mobility. I started journaling in my room, writing down everything I had learned about strength, empathy, patience, and the power of human connection. I realized that even in the hospital, surrounded by strangers, I had found a community of care that reminded me of the beauty of life. But just when I thought my recovery was progressing smoothly, an extreme event occurred that would shake me again. That night, as I was drifting into sleep, I heard a commotion outside my room. Voices raised, doors slamming. Someone was shouting for help. My heart pounded as nurses rushed past my door, and I could hear the unmistakable sounds of an emergency. I tried to see what was happening, but the curtains blocked my view. The adrenaline surged through me, reminding me that life's tests don't wait for perfect timing, and that even in a place meant for healing, chaos can arrive without warning. I held my breath, unsure of what had happened, but knowing deep down that once again, I would have to witness courage and empathy in action. And as I lay in my hospital bed, gripping the edges of my blanket, I realized that these moments, these extreme events, were teaching me more than any calm day ever could. They were teaching me about resilience, about how to find hope and strength in the midst of fear, and how to trust the kindness of those around you even when the world seems uncertain. And so, my dear listeners, that is where we leave Chapter 3. The hospital had become more than a place for recovery. It was a place of lessons, of small victories, and of sudden challenges that tested every ounce of courage I had. The commotion that night lingered in my mind long after the alarms faded and the shouts were replaced by the soft hum of hospital machinery. I could barely sleep, tossing and turning under my blankets, feeling both anxious and powerless. James noticed my unease and kept a steady hand on mine, whispering, "It's okay, Evelyn. You're safe now. Everything is under control." I nodded, trying to believe him, But my thoughts kept returning to the sound of that sudden chaos. By morning, the source of the commotion became clear. One of the hospital's older elevators had malfunctioned, leaving a group of patients stranded inside. The staff had acted quickly, and thankfully no one was hurt. But witnessing the rush, the concern on the nurses' faces, and the panicked expressions of the trapped patients reminded me once again that life is fragile, and safety is never guaranteed. Even in places designed for care and recovery, danger can appear without warning. Despite this, the morning brought a softer, more comforting pace. The sunlight streamed through my window, bathing my hospital room in golden warmth. Claire arrived first, holding a small bouquet of daisies she had picked herself. She had a way of making even the simplest gestures feel like a grand celebration. Michael came soon after, carrying a tray with my breakfast and a new puzzle. They both smiled at me, their eyes filled with love and relief. We spent the morning laughing softly, solving the puzzle together and talking about ordinary things: books, memories from childhood, and my favorite recipes. I realized that these ordinary, less extreme moments were just as important as the dramatic ones. They were the glue that held me together, the reminders that life isn't only about sudden emergencies but also about the gentle acts of care that make each day meaningful. As I regained strength, I started walking a little farther each day with James and Michael by my side. Every step was difficult at first, my legs weak from inactivity, my stomach still tender from surgery. But with each passing day, I felt more capable. I marveled at the patience and encouragement of the hospital staff, who never rushed me, who cheered each small success as though it were a grand triumph. One afternoon, as I practiced walking in the hallway, I noticed an elderly man struggling to reach his wheelchair. His hands trembled, and he seemed frustrated by his own weakness. Without thinking, I approached him. "Do you need help?" I asked softly. He looked at me with relief and nodded. Together, we managed to get him seated safely. In that simple moment, I realized that empathy is a two-way street. While I received kindness from others, I could also give it in ways both small and significant. But life, as I was learning, rarely allows calm to last long. That evening, just as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the hospital walls, an extreme event struck again. A sudden storm caused a brief power outage, plunging the entire floor into darkness. The lights flickered and died, and the constant hum of machines fell silent for a terrifying moment. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as darkness enveloped the room. Nurse Jessica quickly moved to my bedside, holding a flashlight and speaking calmly. "It's okay, Grandma Evelyn. Everything is under control. The backup generator is on its way." James held my hand tightly, and Claire and Michael, who had stayed late to visit, gathered around me. The room, though dark and filled with uncertainty, was anchored by human presence, love, and reassurance. In that moment, I understood something profound. Extreme events, whether sudden medical emergencies, malfunctions, or storms, are a part of life. But what matters most is how we respond, how we support each other, and how we allow care, kindness, and empathy to guide us through the fear. By the time the lights flickered back on and the machines hummed steadily again, I felt a sense of quiet triumph. I had faced fear once more, and I had survived with the help of my family and the hospital staff. Yet deep down, I knew that the days ahead would bring more challenges. My body was still fragile, and my mind carried the memory of every extreme event that had shaken me. As I settled back into bed that night, I reflected on the lessons I had learned. Life is unpredictable, yes, but courage is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to move forward despite it. Strength is not only physical. It is emotional and spiritual. And above all, kindness, both given and received, is the force that allows us to endure and grow, even in the most difficult circumstances. And yet, just as I was beginning to feel a sense of stability, something unexpected happened. A new extreme event was about to challenge me in ways I had never imagined, testing not only my body but my heart, my patience, and my understanding of love and care. That, my dear listeners, is where we leave Chapter 4. The hospital had become more than a place of healing. It was now a stage for lessons in courage, resilience, and empathy. And the journey was far from over. Chapter 4 ends here, with the storm and power outage as the extreme event, leaving the next chapter open for the new challenge that will unfold. The night after the power outage, I lay in my hospital bed, thinking about how fragile life truly is. The sudden darkness, the hum of machines cut off, the fear that gripped everyone around me. It had all been a powerful reminder that even in a place designed for healing, the unexpected can arrive at any moment. I held James's hand tightly, grateful for his steady presence. "Evelyn," he whispered, "you're stronger than you think. We'll get through every challenge together." The following morning, my body was sore, my stomach tender, but my spirit felt oddly resilient. I realized that surviving these extreme events was not only about physical strength, it was about trust, patience, and allowing others to help. Nurse Jessica came in with her usual warmth, checking my vitals and chatting about my progress. Her presence reminded me that sometimes, courage is simply having someone who believes in you, someone who shows up even when the world feels uncertain. For a few days, life settled into a rhythm of calmer, less extreme events. I practiced walking longer distances with James, slowly regaining strength in my legs. Claire brought in a small music player and played my favorite songs from my youth. Tunes that made me smile, reminisce, and forget the pain for a few precious moments. Michael helped me with exercises and even brought a small journal so I could continue writing down my thoughts and reflections. These ordinary acts of care, I realized, were just as important as surviving sudden crises. They were the invisible threads holding me together. One afternoon, I decided to visit the hospital garden. It was a small courtyard filled with flowers and benches, a place where patients could breathe fresh air and feel a connection to the outside world. I struggled a little, but with James's support, I made it to a bench under a blooming cherry tree. The soft breeze and the sunlight made me feel alive again. I sat there, breathing slowly, reflecting on how kindness, from my family, the nurses, and even strangers, had carried me through the last few days. But life, as it always does, refused to let me stay in calm for long. Later that evening, just as I was preparing for bed, an extreme event occurred that would shake me in ways I never expected. A sudden sharp pain shot through my side, the same area where the appendix had been removed. My heart raced and panic gripped me. "Not again," I whispered, fear crawling up my spine. James and Claire rushed to my side immediately. "Grandma, stay calm. It might be gas or something minor," Claire said, though I could hear the worry in her voice. Michael was on the phone with Dr. Lawson, explaining my symptoms. Within minutes, a nurse arrived with a wheelchair, helping me settle safely. My mind spun with fear and confusion. Could there be a complication? Had something gone wrong during surgery? The nurses acted quickly, checking my vitals and comforting me. They explained that post-surgery pain can sometimes be unpredictable, that my body was still healing, and that they would monitor me closely. I realized, even in the face of this extreme event, that I was not alone. My family, the nurses, the doctors, they were all there working together to make sure I was safe and cared for. Through the pain and fear, I thought about the lessons I had been learning. Life is full of sudden, extreme events, but the ability to endure comes from trust, empathy, and the support of those around us. Strength is not just physical, it is emotional, mental, and spiritual. And even in moments of fear, the presence of love and kindness can transform despair into hope. Over the next few days, I gradually regained stability. The sharp pains became less frequent, and I learned to listen to my body more carefully. The hospital staff continued to show patience and compassion, adjusting medications, guiding me through exercises, and ensuring I felt supported. My family remained steadfast, each day bringing small acts of care and encouragement. But as I lay in bed one quiet evening, watching the sun set over the city through my window, I sensed that another extreme event was approaching, one that would challenge me not only physically but emotionally, and perhaps even change my perspective on life, family, and resilience forever. And that, my dear listeners, is where we leave Chapter 5. The hospital had become more than a place of recovery. It was now a stage for lessons in courage, empathy, and the unexpected challenges that test the human spirit. The journey was far from over, and the next chapter would bring new trials, triumphs, and revelations that would continue to shape my story. The flare-up of pain that night left me trembling in my hospital bed, but it also reminded me how important it is to face fear with calm and trust. Nurse Jessica stayed by my side, holding my hand and talking softly. "Grandma Evelyn, you're safe. These things happen, but we're here to help." Her words felt like a lifeline, steadying me through the storm of worry and discomfort. James squeezed my hand, and Claire brushed my hair back gently. Even Michael's usually quiet presence radiated comfort. The next morning, Dr. Lawson came to check on me. "The flare-up is normal," he explained. "Your body is still healing and your muscles are adjusting. We'll keep monitoring you, but I expect steady recovery from here." I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that what felt extreme and dangerous the night before was actually a normal part of healing. Still, the incident reminded me that recovery isn't linear. Even after major surgery, setbacks can appear unexpectedly. In the days that followed, I began to notice small joys returning. I could take longer walks in the hospital corridors without gasping for breath. Claire started bringing homemade lemon bars and teas that lifted my spirits. Michael taught me a few light stretches to strengthen my legs. James never left my side, his quiet strength anchoring me through every moment. I began to see that even ordinary days, with their small victories, were full of beauty. One afternoon, I met a fellow patient, Mrs. Henderson, an older woman recovering from hip surgery. She was timid and hesitant, but as I spoke to her gently and offered encouragement, I realized that my own experiences of pain and fear could help others find courage. We shared stories about our families, our joys, and our struggles. In her smile, I recognized the power of empathy, the simple act of listening, understanding, and offering support. Just as I was beginning to feel comfortable with this new rhythm, the hospital erupted into chaos once more. This time it was different from the previous emergencies. A young nurse burst into my room, looking flustered. "Grandma Evelyn, we need your help," she said urgently. I blinked, unsure what she meant. James and my children exchanged worried glances. Down the hall, a patient had fainted, and multiple staff members were already attending to them. They needed extra hands to guide the patient safely to a bed and reassure them while medical care was provided. Though my body was still tender, I knew I could offer something. With Jessica's guidance, I helped steady the patient, speaking softly, holding their hand, and offering words of comfort. The gratitude in the patient's eyes reminded me that even when we are vulnerable ourselves, we can still give strength to others. After the chaos passed, I felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The hospital had become a place of constant learning, testing my courage and compassion in ways I had never imagined. Each extreme event, whether a sudden flare-up of pain or a medical emergency in the corridor, was a reminder that life is unpredictable. But each less extreme moment, quiet walks, conversations, acts of kindness, was proof that we can find strength in connection, empathy, and patience. As the day wound down, I sat by the window watching the sunset with James. He held my hand, and we both felt the calm after the storm. But deep in my heart, I knew that my journey was far from over. Another extreme event was waiting just around the corner, one that would challenge my spirit in ways I hadn't yet faced. It wasn't just about physical healing anymore. It was about resilience, trust, and the unshakable power of love and kindness. And so, my dear listeners, that is where we leave Chapter 6. The hospital had become a place of lessons, both quiet and dramatic, teaching me about courage, empathy, and the strength that comes from human connection. The next chapter promises even greater challenges and deeper insights, as my journey of recovery and personal growth continues. The days in the hospital were beginning to feel like a rhythm, a pattern of quiet moments broken by sudden bursts of chaos. I had started to grow accustomed to this balance, walking slowly down the corridors, enjoying the warm sunlight through the windows, laughing with Claire and Michael, and sharing quiet conversations with nurses and fellow patients. Yet, even as life seemed to settle, I knew the next extreme event was lurking somewhere ahead. It arrived unexpectedly on a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in my bed, sipping warm tea that Claire had brought me, when a loud crash echoed from the supply closet down the hall. My heart jumped. A cart had tipped over, spilling medical supplies across the floor, and several staff members were rushing to prevent someone from slipping. The commotion drew attention, and in the flurry, I realized that the young patient I had helped a few days earlier was nearby, frightened by the sudden noise. Nurse Jessica quickly ushered the patient away, while James instinctively moved closer to me, his hand holding mine firmly. I could feel the tension rising, and I realized that these extreme events, though not directly life-threatening, stirred the same fear and anxiety as the larger incidents before. It was a reminder that in life, even small accidents can feel overwhelming if we are unprepared or alone. After the initial panic subsided, I took a deep breath and reflected on what I had learned in the past weeks. Calm and empathy are as crucial as action. I leaned toward the young patient, speaking softly, holding their hand, and reassuring them that everything was fine. I realized again that courage isn't just about surviving for yourself, it's about helping others endure too. The next few days brought a mixture of smaller, less extreme events. I started to enjoy simple walks in the hospital garden again, soaking in the sunlight, talking to flowers, and even sharing jokes with other patients. Michael brought a stack of puzzles, and Claire read aloud stories from my favorite novels. These quieter moments reminded me of the importance of joy, laughter, and companionship, even in places that can feel cold and clinical. Yet life has a way of testing our patience and resilience at the most unexpected times. One evening, as I was lying in bed, the door burst open and a nurse rushed in. "Grandma Evelyn, we need you to come with us immediately," she said, her voice sharp with urgency. My pulse quickened. James and my children looked equally alarmed. I had no idea what was happening, but I could feel the electricity of another extreme event in the air. We hurried down the hall, and I discovered that a patient in the ICU had gone into sudden distress. The nurses needed extra hands to calm the family members, guide them safely, and provide comfort. Despite my own fragile state, I found myself moving with purpose, holding hands, offering quiet reassurances, and helping those around me find calm in the chaos. Each moment tested my courage, patience, and empathy, but it also reinforced the lessons I had learned. Even when life is unpredictable, we have the power to bring calm, care, and hope. After the situation stabilized, I returned to my room, exhausted but oddly invigorated. James helped me settle into bed, brushing back my hair and whispering, "You've done something remarkable today." I smiled faintly, realizing he was right, not because I had physical strength, but because I had chosen to act with kindness, compassion, and courage in the face of fear. That night, as the hospital settled into quiet, I reflected on how far I had come. From the moment of my first pain, the surgery, the flare-ups, the accidents, and the chaos in the hallways, I had been pushed to my limits, physically and emotionally. And yet, each extreme event had also revealed the extraordinary kindness of people around me. Nurses, doctors, family, even strangers. They had all shown me that human connection is the most powerful medicine of all. But just as I was beginning to feel a sense of calm and accomplishment, the unexpected happened again. A sudden, severe storm began outside, shaking the hospital windows, rattling the doors, and causing the lights to flicker. The storm was fiercer than anything I had anticipated, and as I lay in bed listening to the wind and rain, I felt a shiver of fear run through me. This was an extreme event unlike the others, one that tested not just my body and mind but my spirit. And that, my dear listeners, is where we leave Chapter 7. The hospital had become a crucible, forging lessons in courage, empathy, and resilience. Each extreme event, each calmer moment, was teaching me how to endure, how to care, and how to find hope even when the world seemed uncertain. The next chapter will reveal how this storm affects not only me but everyone around me, and how the power of human kindness can shine brightest in the darkest hour. The days following the storm were quieter, yet my body still reminded me that recovery was not a straight path. My steps were steadier, my appetite returning, and my spirits lifted by the constant care of my family and the hospital staff. Yet, deep inside, I knew that one final extreme event was waiting, one that would challenge me in ways I had never experienced before. It arrived one morning with a sudden, sharp pain in my chest. At first, I thought it might be my heart reacting to stress, or perhaps a muscle strain from all the walking and stretching exercises. But the pain grew stronger, and panic crept into my mind. James rushed to my side, holding me gently. Claire and Michael appeared within minutes, their worry etched clearly across their faces. "Grandma, we're here." "Don't panic," Claire whispered, her hands trembling slightly. The nurses arrived quickly, taking my vitals, listening to my heartbeat, and monitoring my breathing. I realized then that extreme events don't always arrive with warnings. They can appear suddenly, without reason, and demand courage we didn't know we had. My mind raced with thoughts. Is this another complication? Am I going to survive this? The fear was sharp, but the love and calm around me created a small space of safety, a buffer against the panic. Dr. Lawson appeared within minutes, reassuring me as he examined my chest and checked the monitors. "It's a minor reaction to anesthesia and stress from your recent events," he explained gently. "Your heart is strong and your body is healing well. We'll manage the discomfort and you'll be fine." Relief flooded through me like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. I realized that sometimes what feels extreme is manageable when you have trust, care, and guidance surrounding you. The next few days became a mixture of reflection and gentle recovery. I started journaling more intensely, writing letters to my grandchildren about the lessons I had learned. I told them about the importance of empathy, the courage found in everyday acts of kindness, and the strength that comes from facing fear with support. I wanted them to understand that life is unpredictable, but love, care, and human connection can carry us through even the hardest trials. I also spent more time helping other patients whenever I could. There was a young woman recovering from surgery who was frightened of her own pain, a man anxious about an upcoming procedure, and even children visiting with their parents. Each moment I offered calm reassurance, a hand to hold, or a quiet word of encouragement. I felt stronger, more confident, and more alive. These small acts reminded me that courage isn't just surviving for yourself, it's helping others survive alongside you. But, as life had taught me repeatedly, the final extreme event was yet to come. One late evening, as the hospital floor was quiet and most patients were asleep, a sudden call came over the intercom. A major medical emergency on the next wing. Nurses rushed past my room, and I could hear the hurried beeping of machines, the flurry of footsteps, and the tense voices of staff coordinating care. My heart raced, and I realized this was the culmination of all the trials I had faced so far. James, Claire, and Michael stayed close, supporting me through the fear of the unknown. I watched the staff handle the situation with calm efficiency, showing courage, skill, and compassion in equal measure. Though I was not directly involved, the experience reminded me that extreme events often test not only physical strength, but emotional resilience, patience, and the ability to trust others. It was the final lesson of the hospital, that life's unpredictability can be met with grace when surrounded by love and kindness. As the night settled and the emergency was successfully handled, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. I had survived surgery, flare-ups, accidents, storms, and sudden medical scares. I had experienced fear and pain, but also warmth, empathy, and courage from those around me. I understood more clearly than ever that strength is not only about enduring hardship, it's about how we care for others and allow ourselves to receive care in return. That night, lying in bed with James by my side, I whispered softly, "We've made it, all of it." Claire smiled and kissed my forehead, and Michael squeezed my hand. For the first time in weeks, I felt a deep, unwavering peace. The extreme events had shaped me, yes, but they had also revealed the extraordinary beauty of humanity, the care, the courage, and the love that can carry us through even the darkest hours. And that, my dear listeners, is where we leave Chapter 9. The lessons of resilience, empathy, and courage had reached their peak. But the final chapter will reveal the full resolution of my journey, the culmination of recovery, the triumph over fear, and the celebration of life, love, and family that carried me through my 4 days in the hospital. The morning after the final emergency, the hospital was calm. Sunlight poured through my window, warm and reassuring, as if the world itself were celebrating my survival. The pain from surgery had diminished, my strength was returning, and for the first time in weeks, I felt truly at peace. James sat by my side, holding my hand, while Claire and Michael brought flowers and breakfast, their smiles brighter than any medicine. I reflected on everything that had happened, the sudden pain that led to my appendectomy, the flare-ups, the accidents in the corridors, the storm, the power outages, and the final medical emergency. Each extreme event had terrified me in its own way, but each had also revealed something extraordinary. The quiet courage of nurses, the unwavering support of my family, and the resilience that lived within me. I realized that life's challenges are never just obstacles. They are opportunities to grow, to care for others, and to discover strength we never knew we had. As the nurses came to check my vitals and prepare me for discharge, I felt a mix of excitement and bittersweet emotion. I had grown attached to the hospital staff. Their kindness had been a lifeline, and their dedication had inspired me daily. Nurse Jessica hugged me warmly. "You've been incredible, Grandma Evelyn. You faced every challenge with bravery and grace." I smiled, feeling tears well up. "It wasn't just me," I whispered. "It was everyone here, and my family. You all gave me courage." James helped me into the wheelchair, and together we made our way to the hospital entrance. The doors opened to a bright, sunny day. Birds chirped in the trees, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass. Claire handed me a blanket for warmth, and Michael held the door open with a grin. For the first time in days, I could breathe freely, feeling the world around me as alive and beautiful as ever. As we drove home, I reflected on the lessons of these 4 days. Life is unpredictable, often filled with moments of fear, uncertainty, and pain. But it is also filled with love, care, and kindness. True strength comes not from enduring hardship alone, but from trusting others, showing empathy, and allowing yourself to be supported. Every small act of courage, every word of comfort, every gentle gesture of care, these are what truly carry us through life. When we arrived home, I was greeted by the familiar warmth of my house. The garden, where I had spent so many peaceful hours, seemed to bloom brighter than ever. I knew that recovery would continue, that my body would need time to fully heal, but I felt ready. I had faced extreme events, experienced fear, and yet I had also discovered the incredible power of human kindness and resilience. That evening, as I sat with James, Claire, and Michael in the living room, I shared the lessons I had learned. "Life isn't about avoiding pain," I told them softly. "It's about how we respond to it, how we care for others, and how we allow others to care for us. Courage and empathy are the true measures of strength." They listened quietly, their faces reflecting both understanding and admiration. Later, as I rested in my room, I looked back on the entire journey. The operation that had seemed so frightening, the 4 days of uncertainty, the extreme events and quieter moments alike, they had all shaped me, teaching lessons I will carry for the rest of my life. I felt gratitude for every hand that held mine, every word of encouragement, and every heartbeat that reminded me I was not alone. And so, my dear listeners, this is the conclusion of my story. 4 days in a hospital filled with fear, pain, and uncertainty, but also with hope, love, and lessons that will last a lifetime. I learned that life's challenges are never meant to break us. They are meant to show us the strength, courage, and kindness that exist within and around us. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I felt a deep, unshakable peace. I had faced the storm, survived the trials, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more grateful than ever. And I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them with courage, love, and empathy, the gifts that had carried me through these unforgettable days.